Hey, how's it going out there? Hope you
Opa,
guys are
tudo
doing
certo, e
well.
até?
So, today I'm going to be talking about Fantastic Four, the first steps, which is the introduction officially of the Fantastic Four into the MCU, which has been long overdue. I mean, people have been wanting the Fantastic Four and the X Men and the MCU for pretty much since it was, a thing, but especially when the MCU was at its peak, Infinity War, Endgame, people were wanting them to come in because I think it was around the time Infinity War came out is when the Fox merger happened, where Disney acquired Fox, and so people were wondering if the Fantastic Four and X Men were going to show up, and they didn't. But they have finally arrived in the MCU, and I have to say that the movie itself was pretty good. It was enjoyable. It's the best Fantastic Four movie, which is not really saying much. I mean, it really hasn't been the best competition. I really don't know if there's even been a decent Fantastic Four movie. It seems like for whatever reason, the Fantastic Four has just been cursed with adaptations. Like for some strange reason, this has just been the one superhero team or just group of superheroes that have just been very hard for anyone to get right. And I think by and large, this film actually gets them pretty good. I think that this film does a pretty good job mostly. I think a few of the Fantastic Four, there's a few of them that are a little bit stronger than the others. I mean, I think for example, the Thing, he's one of the weakest characters of the group. Not like as far as being a bad character, but he really doesn't have much to do. He's just kind of there. We really don't go into his, life at all. We don't really learn much about him. He doesn't have much going on. Yeah, he has like a romance that's just kind of in passing. Like the girl he's in love with, or is like a romance. It like she's only in like a handful of scenes, and we never see her again. So I think the Thing is probably the least served from this film, and I think Sue in a way kind of is, even though it's strange because Sue is a pretty big part of this film, but I feel like her character is just kind of flat and doesn't really have much to do other than just being a concerned mother. Like that's pretty much her character type is just she's overly concerned mom and she has, a pretty big dilemma to deal with. But as far as her actual character, she I feel like her dynamic with Reed Richards when they are, going back and forth with arguments, I think their relationship is interesting, but I feel like Sue on her own, she doesn't really have that much going on. Johnny, I think I like what they did of him. He's not just the, hot-headed jock who's just in the chicks. He's actually surprisingly smart. He's actually surprisingly competent. He's probably, besides Reed, the smartest person on the team. I mean, at least for what is shown that he's done in the film. And I like him. I think he's one of the stronger of the group. I think Reed's definitely one of the strongest. I mean, there's only four of them. There's not really a whole group of them like the Avengers, but I think by and large the characters were served okay, some less than others. I think that the dynamic between them was done well. I think the film does a pretty good job of establishing how these characters interact with each other, what their relationship is. You can also kind of gauge, not because the film doesn't really go too much into their past, but you can kind of gauge from how they interact, kind of what their pre-established relationship is, which is pretty good. So as far as the main Fantastic Four characters, I think that the film did pretty good with that. But now I want to give a warning. I will be getting into spoilers for the film going forward to some of the other characters, so just keep that in mind. But with that out the way, some of the other characters I feel were just either not utilized great or were not just really done justice, were pretty much the villains. Galactus, who has been long awaited, like the Fantastic Four, and also like the Fantastic Four, has just not been adapted correctly. We had that fucking fart cloud or whatever that was supposed to be in that one film years ago. And so we've never really had a actually good Galactus be in a film. And I will say that as far as the design goes, the design, the actor, the voice, the aesthetic of Galactus is remarkable. Like it's fantastic. And even the Silver Surfer, I think her design looks good. But Galactus, it really just doesn't do a lot in the film. He just kind of sits around and he gives a lot of exposition, a lot of exposition that really doesn't even Doesn't make sense why he's even saying that. Uh, and then he just kind of gets defeated in a very underwhelming, very anticlimactic way. You don't really feel like that this is a above human comprehension cosmic deity. He seems like a pretty generic big bad guy who wants, wants this, and if you don't give it to him, he's going to destroy everything. Like he's pretty simplistic in what he wants and his goals and what he's doing. He doesn't really seem that complex. There's nothing really much. There's not much to him. He's just kind of a generic bad guy. And then he shows up, doesn't really do anything. And also he's just really fucking small too. Like I mean, yeah, he's as big as probably like about a skyscraper, but when you compare him to the who are they called? The Celestials or the Eternals? No, the Celestials. When you compare him to Celestials, I mean he's like a fucking ant. Like I would expect for Galactus, I was hoping that what they were going to do with Galactus is that he was like had like a shape shifting ability, where like he could shape and alter his size to where he could be small, then he could be big, and that like his base form is like Erisham. He was like that giant Eternal, which is like the size of like 4 planets stacked on top of each other. I thought he was going to be that big, but he's really not. He's surprisingly small. And also, it kind of begs into question like why he needs a Silver Surfer, because it seems like he can kind of go to any of the planets pretty quickly. Like he can jump around the universe surprisingly quick because he has a spaceship, and he jumps around in that thing pretty quick. Like he goes from one end of the universe to the other, like in a very short period of time. And then he can also show up on planets. So it's like I don't really get why he needs a Silver Surfer. Like I guess because she's a little bit more quicker and efficient, but like kind of the whole point of Silver Surfer is that like he can be like the like the guide where like he can go to these planets, he can scout the planets. He can do things that Galactus can't. But it's like if Galactus can show up on these planets, can travel the universe, it's like I don't know why he needs a herald when it seems like he can do everything on his own. The film doesn't really explain why there is this necessity to have the Silver Surfer when he's shown to be able to do everything he needs to as far as like eating planets, finding planets, going to planets. He does all that by himself, and the Silver Surfer is just kind of secondary. So I don't really know what the point of her is in this film. And then to talk about the Silver Surfer, I feel like she was also not necessarily a underdeveloped character, but I feel like the film wanted her to be a really sympathetic character, but then they also made a very contradictory character because on the one hand, she's the herald of this cosmic planet-eating being, and she has caused the death of billions to potentially trillions, depending on how many planets she's been to. She has caused directly the death and the destruction of several planets, billions of life. And somehow we're supposed to the film kind of wants you to feel bad for her, and kind of by the end of the film, you're supposed to see her as like a somewhat redeemed good guy. And then it's like, no, not really. Like this, there's a like this is a multi film. This is a arc you would have to do with this character. They essentially try to cram an entire arc that like Loki went on. Like they try to do the whole Loki arc in one film instead of multiple films and years. They just want her to go from being a straight villain to a straight good guy who's sympathetic within the span of an hour, and it just doesn't work. And also, her characteristic just doesn't work because she's portrayed at the beginning as being like this kind of just emotionless, goal obsessed character. Like she does what she has to, and she has no malice or evil intent. She just is doing her job, and she's serving Galactus. That's her purpose. And then at the end of the film, Johnny he like plays all these recordings of the planets that she's been to, and plays all these recordings of the life forms begging for mercy and begging to be spared. And Johnny has this whole monologue of how all these people and all these creatures were begging for life, and you just let them die or you caused them to die. And the Silver Surfer, after hearing this, has like a fucking manic breakdown, and then just flies off. And it's like, I don't understand that. Like she should be aware. Like she should be hyper aware of what she's doing. Like she intentionally comes to these planets and tells them that Galactus is coming and going to kill all of you and your planet. Cherish your loved ones, value the time you have left, and she leaves. I don't understand why all of a sudden she's like this overly emotional, distraught, you know, overly distraught about this. It's like, you should be hyper aware of what you're doing. Like she should be just like almost like a Thanos character, where she's like, "This is what I have to do. I'm one of the few beings in the universe that can actually have the will and the resolve to do what I have to. I get that you're trying to save your planet, but this is my job. You are just one of an endless line of life forms who've desperately tried to save their planet, and just like them, you will fail. I have nothing against you people, but this is just my job." That's what she should have been like. But the thing is, the film wants you to feel bad for her and wants you to like her, and they want to humanize her. So you can't have her be this just absolutely indifferent, goal obsessed, by any means necessary type of character who doesn't really have any guilt or any remorse for all the life that she's caused to be killed. You have to humanize her. You have to make her, feel bad and go into her history of, she was a scientist on her planet and how she spared her planet by being a herald. But then there's also something else about Silver Surfer that just is it's just fucking crazy, because her whole point, the whole reason she's the herald for Galactus is that she made a deal with him that in exchange for her planet to be spared, she would be his herald pretty much forever. That was the deal. Like, I will serve you in exchange. You spare my planet, and you don't let my planet be destroyed. And Galactus honored that. But then at the end of the film, when Galactus is being transported into the portal to be teleported to the end of the universe, the Silver Surfer shows up and actually betrays him and then forces him into the portal. So it's like, okay, you've just essentially negated everything you've done as a Silver Surfer is for nothing, because now Galactus is going to say, "Okay, fuck you. I'm going to destroy your planet, probably kill you. So everything you've done, all these planets and life you sacrificed at the expense of your planet and your free will is for nothing." So like, I don't even understand, like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, her whole characterization is just a contradiction. It makes no sense. The film, because the film just really wants you to, at the same time, be a villain. They want her to be a villain, but at the same time, they don't want her to be fully a villain, and they want her to be humanized, and they want her to be a likable character, and they want her to be redeemed. Because the film, I feel like, feels like it has redeemed her by the end. Like, oh, she stopped Galactus, she saved Galactus, or no, not saved Galactus, but she saved the planet from Galactus, and it's like, no, she has a lot to atone for. She is responsible for billions to trillions of life forms being destroyed. She has caused you could argue, you could actually make the case that she has more of a higher, maybe not technically, maybe not, but at least officially, you could say that she has a higher death count than Thanos did. Because now you can say, well, Thanos erased half the universe, but that doesn't really count because they all came back. But like, as far as like causing directly the deaths of life forms, I mean, she has to be up there, because the film confirms she has been to several planets that Galactus has consumed, at least like 4 or 5, I think 7. Who knows how many millions, billions, trillions of life forms are on those planets that she just caused to be killed. She intentionally seeks these planets out. Like, that's the thing, is like, in a lot of the comic variations, the main Silver Surfer, he tries to find planets that are not populated. He tries to find like desolate, empty planets that just have no life or very little life. So that way, the repercussions of Galactus eating that planet is very little. Like, you're not causing the death of millions or trillions or billions of life forms. And so the mainline Silver Surfer, that's what he kind of tries to do, is like, he tries to find either just completely vacant planets or very low planets that that don't have a high population count to send Galactus. And they could have done. I mean, well, and the problem is they couldn't have done that in this film because then there wouldn't have been a conflict. Because if this Silver Surfer was like that, then she would have never shown up to this planet, and so that would have been a whole. The plot couldn't have worked if she had that type of mindset. So she had to send Galactus there. They don't. It's not really explained well what the criteria is for like what type of planets Galactus goes to or how she chooses them. We really don't get into that. So yeah, I feel like the Silver Surfer was just a really poorly written, not poorly written, but I feel like the film did a poor job of trying to characterize this film properly because they wanted two different things that just didn't work, and they tried to rush an entire character arc into one film, and it just did not work. So, as far as the villains are the weakest part. The Fantastic Four, they're the highlight. You know, they are the heart of the film. Their dynamic's great. But as far as the villains were just really underwhelming. And then also, the relationship between Galactus and the Silver Surfer is really not explored. Like, we really don't get a lot of, scenes with them talking, interacting, exploring the relationship, expanding on it. Yeah, we just get like one or two scenes of them together, and that's it. They really don't. Like, it's almost kind of weird how little the Silver Surfer and Galactus do not interact. Like, they don't really. For most of the film, the Silver Surfer is just either chasing the Fantastic Four, or she's off doing something, or she's just on her own. Like, there's not a lot of interaction between them, and you would think you'd want that. Like, it just would be nice to have a little bit of characterization between Galactus and Silver Surfer. Like, you got that, not a lot, but like with Thanos and the Black Order, like you got a little bit of that where he would talk to them. And like, normally you would, like, especially this type of relationship, because this is a pretty iconic, duo, the Silver Surfer and Galactus. And you would think they'd want to kind of expand and develop that relationship. And they really don't. And honestly, who the hell knows when we're going to see these characters again? I mean, Galactus and the Silver Surfer, they're still alive. They're not dead. But I mean, who knows when and if we'll see either of them again? I mean, with the MCU possibly rebooting after Secret Wars, and who knows what happens after that? Like, this might be the only time we see this Galactus and this Silver Surfer, and if that's the case, I mean, this is a very underwhelming, disappointing entry for what should have been two pretty impactful characters. It just is not that impactful. Um, but on to the film itself. I mean, I will say the film looks beautiful. It has a gorgeous, nice. It has that nice, almost like a Fallout aesthetic of like being this highly advanced retro '60s environment where they got like flying cars, they got robots, they got these cool gadgets that are it's almost Jetson like, and how the universe is like the world is done. Like, it's kind of Jetsons like, where you got the flying vehicles, you got the kind of the sci-fi looking buildings, and you can tell it's like it's supposed to be a play off of like a alternate Earth. Like, it's supposed to be an alternate Earth variant. That's like just in the '60s with like superheroes and advanced technology, and I think that worked well. Like, the set pieces in the film look fantastic. The city looks good. The cinematography is great. The action sequences are phenomenal. There's a chase scene between the Fantastic Four and the Silver Surfer where they're like he's or she's chasing them through space, and they're going through like wormholes and black holes and portals, and it's a really cool chase scene. It's probably the highlight of the film is the Silver Surfer chasing them and them trying to outmaneuver her, trying to get rid of her, and she comes back, or they think she's gone. And so that was a pretty cool scene. So yeah, and most of the action was pretty good in the film. The only thing I would say as far as the action that I was kind of disappointed by is we don't really see Mr. Fantastic use a lot of his powers in any of the action sequences. Like, we see the Human Torch use his powers a lot. We see Sue use her powers a lot. We see the Thing, obviously, very strong, a superhuman strength. We see him lift things up, but you rarely get to see Mr. Fantastic like use his stretching powers. Like he kind of only uses it very seldomly. Like he'll use it to like grab something or to like pull something or to reach something. But you don't really see him using his stretchy ability like he could. Like, and we've seen so many different types of elastic type characters from Mrs. Fantastic and the Incredibles. No, man, no, that's not Mr. Fantastic. Mrs. Incredible. Of how she's able to like really shapeshift to use her elastic ability to like shapeshift. She can become a boat, a parachute. She can, take different shapes. And then we've seen, like Luffy in One Piece, what he can do with stretching powers. So we've seen like there's a lot you can do, and I mean, I guess you could say it's the argument of it would be kind of hard to like make stretching powers look kind of not goofy and silly, but I don't think so. I mean, I think you could do it in a way because they did it in the other Fantastic Four movies where it was done kind of well. So I don't know why they couldn't do it in this film. So that was the only one disappointing thing about the action sequences, especially with the Fantastic Four, is that we get to see the three, of the Fantastic Four use their powers, but we really don't get to see Mr. Fantastic use his powers, which is disappointing. But I'm sure we'll probably see him use it in Doomsday and Secret Wars, so we'll probably get to see him use his powers later. But in this film, he really doesn't use them much. Um, as far as the story goes, I think that the story was pretty decent. I will say I feel like the film almost had an aversion to consequences. One of the main issues I had with this film is that it felt like there was just almost like a resistance to trying to have any type of consequences in the film. Like one of the main like point of contention in the film is that one of the plot points, the main plot point, is that Galactus reveals to the Fantastic Four because Sue's pregnant, and uh, it turns out that Franklin Richards, who is the baby of Franklin and Sue, has the power or contains the power cosmic and is going to be it is destined to be one of the most powerful beings in existence, and he is willing to spare their planet in exchange for Franklin. So like so essentially if the Fantastic Four gives Galactus Franklin, then he'll spare their planet, and they say no because they go into space to talk to Galactus after the Silver Surfer shows up and tells them about Galactus coming and their planet's going to die. So they go into space to kind of negotiate with him. They go and meet him, and he explains about what Franklin is and what he's going to become, and how he's the key to pretty much like allowing him to permanently retire from his job, as like devouring planets. And the Fantastic Four say no, and so they come back home, and the public is expecting them to talk about what like what happened, like how they defeated Galactus and what happened, and so now this is also this is something I kind of have an issue with because Reed is supposed to be one of the smartest human, not even just one of the smartest humans. He's supposed to be one of the smartest characters in the Marvel universe. And this is kind of an aside, but it ties into this. So Reed's supposed to be one of the smartest characters in the Marvel universe, and he, at several points in this film, makes some of the most stupid decisions for no reason that a normal person with basic common sense would not do. And this is one of them. So when they come back from talking to Galactus, uh, not Franklin, Reed tells them that Galactus. So not only did we not defeat Galactus, but he was willing to bargain, and what he was wanting was a price too high to pay. And so naturally, the public is wondering because they have this big press conference, and everyone's like, well, what did he ask for? And Reed says he wanted our baby, and we're not gonna give it to him. And then not only does he tell the public this, that they refuse to give their baby to Galactus to save the planet and all the life on it, but then they are asked what their plan is, and Reed says, we don't have a plan. and they walk off. Now, I don't know why Reed would there is no reason for them to have told the public. Was the worst thing they could have done. They could have just said, "We didn't defeat Galactus," or they could have come up with any number of things. They did not have to come out and say Galactus asked for our baby and we refused and we don't have a plan. Like that's just fucking insane. But that's what Reed does. And to no one's surprise, the whole planet turns on because we're like, what the fuck? You mean to tell me you're not willing to sacrifice your baby for the sake of our planet? And so, that becomes a point of contention. And this point right here should have been consequential forever. Like, this should be a permanent stain on the Fantastic Four's legacy forever. But the problem is the film doesn't want to deal with the consequences of that. So what they have is they have Sue come out holding her baby, and she gives this pretty much generic speech about how we're all family, and I'm not going to sacrifice my baby for the planet, but I'm not going to sacrifice the planet for my baby, and we're all in this together. And magically, everyone just is in agreement. They're cheering for the Fantastic Four. They go from, in 1 minute, well, literally within minutes, hating the Fantastic Four, wanting their heads on a platter, wanting to take the baby to sacrifice them, to, oh, you know what? We're on board. We're all a family. We're all in this together. And it's like, no, we're not. Because the fact is, if worst case comes to it, you guys are going to be in your fucking jet or your spaceship, and you're going to fly into space, and we're all going to be like, there is going to be no we in this. Like, if it comes down to it, if Galactus shows up and eats the planet, all four of you and your fucking robot are going to hop in your spaceship, fly the fuck off in space with your baby, and we're going to be all fucked. So there ain't no we in all this. Like, it's you, it's all of you and us are fucked. Like, that's what this is. And the fact that the whole planet goes from hating them, wanting their heads on a fucking pitchfork, to, you know what? We're with them. We have faith in the Fantastic Four. Now, keep in mind, on top of them saying we're not going to sacrifice our baby, we don't have a plan. So it's like, so you're willing to sacrifice the entire planet for your child, and then on top of that, you don't have a fucking idea what you're gonna do. And and the public is supposed to do what, like, how the public is supposed to somehow be fine with that. Like, how anyone, like, I could tell that that was a horrible idea, but somehow the smartest man in the world didn't think that that was going to be a bad idea. But like, that's one instance of consequences just not being a thing. Like, this should be consequential, because by the end of the film, when they quote unquote save the day, the whole planet loves them. They're, superstars and people love them. And it's like, no, like, this should, like, there should be a massive backlash for a long time. Like, this should be something that the Fantastic Four have to deal with for a very, very long time. Like, this should not be something that's just wrapped up within an hour. Like, this should be something that the Fantastic Four have to deal with. Like, the fact that you were not willing to sacrifice your kid for the entire planet, because also it begs into question, how reliable are you going to be if it comes to it for the next crisis? Like, you've shown to be selfish to a fatalistic degree, to where you're willing to allow the whole planet to be destroyed. What's to say that another threat shows up and you're not willing to just do what's in your own best interest and not in the public's interest and leave us to die? We don't know that, because you've done it before. To where if you're willing to do it when the planet's is at stake, no, I mean, God, like, who's to say this won't happen again? Like, this is something that should be consequential for a long time for the Fantastic Four, and it's just not. And I guarantee you that this will never be brought up in another Fantastic Four film. It will never be brought up about how the Fantastic Four were willing to sacrifice the planet for their baby, for their own selfish reasons, their own selfish needs. And they were willing to, and not only that, but the planet nearly died because of them. Like, their plan did not work. It barely worked, just through sheer coincidence. Like, so the planet was somewhat nearly close to actually being destroyed, and there's just nothing. Like, there's no backlash. There's no nothing. And it's just, that was frustrating. But then there's a second time. The follow up is in connection. So when they make so their grand plan is to defeat Galactus. Is that they're going to make these these teleportation pillars where they're going to teleport Galactus from so essentially they're going to lure Galactus to the planet to get him to like Times Square or like the middle of New York, and they're going to teleport him to the edge of the universe by using Franklin as bait. And so now this is New York City, so obviously it's a heavily populated area. So, and they bring it up in the film of like, well, if Galactus shows up here, he's going to destroy a lot, if not the entirety of New York City. And so again, that should be a major consequence. Like it should be consequential that because the Fantastic Four were not willing to sacrifice their baby, that either the most or the entirety of New York is eviscerated by Galactus, and then they have to deal with the aftermath of because you weren't willing to sacrifice your own child, an entire state's gone now. Like millions of people lost their lives, and an entire state doesn't exist because of you. But no, they don't do that. What they do is they bring in the Mole Man, and the Mole Man magically is able. It's like from the fucking Snyder film, Man of Steel or whatever, where like, oh, magically New York of all places, we magically have teleported every person. There's not a single civilian within a 1,000-mile radius in New York. They are all magically within a few hours teleported underground. And I'm like, that's just fucking insane. Like that's comically not realistic. I know it's a superhero, but that's just not realistic. Again, it's the film trying to avoid any consequences. We don't want to deal with the consequences of what the Fantastic Four did. So we're just gonna have everyone magically be safe and no one dies. There's no casualties. As a matter of fact, there's not a single death, I think, of a civilian in this film, and they go to painstaking levels to make sure that there is not one civilian that dies in this film. So again, there's no consequences. Like, and then another example is when Reed and Sue are arguing about like what they're gonna do, and you can tell that there's a lot of tension between them. There's a lot of kind of issues underneath the surface that are kind of coming to the surface. And we get little snippets of it, but then when they kind of really get into a heated conversation where like Reed starts talking about how, I think about the worst possible things and invite them into my mind so that I can prevent them from happening. Like you could do something with that. Like you could have like almost a Tony Stark arc for Reed where he's cursed with this vast knowledge and this vastness of information of like the unknown and what's out there and trying to plan for it, and like him maybe going to an authoritarian level of like by him trying to prevent all these bad threats, these threats from happening and bad things from happening. He becomes extremely authoritarian on possibly a planetary level. And we don't really see that. They don't really address that. They just kind of gloss over it. That's never addressed or really delved into it because we don't want to deal with that. We don't have to deal with the consequences of that. We only want to kind of have it there as conflict. And so, yeah, the film, that was one thing that bothered me is that it seemed like at every possible turn where there could be some actual tension, some actual like consequences for what the Fantastic Four, their actions, it just never was brought up. And I mean, this is a trend that the MCU's had for years of just not wanting to deal with the consequences of what the heroes or the main characters have done. Like they just want to have their story and they don't want their characters to be villainized. So by not doing that, we're just gonna have whatever bad outcome should happen is just not gonna happen. And we're just gonna gloss over it. So that was frustrating. But the whole another thing about this film that kind of bothered me was the whole ending because the ending of the film is they teleport Galactus into they actually get him into the like teleportation device. It's like not a portal. Well, it is a portal. They get him in there and they teleport him to the presumably the edge of the universe, and then the Silver Surfer prevents the Human Torch from sacrificing himself, and she goes in there and stops him from coming out. And the thing I wondered was, how does Reed know that, like, where they sent him? Like, how do they not know that they just sent Galactus to like another fucking planet? Like, I don't know how. Like, and maybe like he did the numbers and whatnot to like know where, but like I don't know. Like, also the other thing about the end of the film, and this is something about Reed as a character that annoys me, is that there are a lot of assumptions that Reed just makes definitively which are not grounded in any type of basis. Like, he just assumes that if we teleport Galactus and the Silver Surfer to the like the presumably the edge of the universe, they won't be able to get back. But it's like, how do you know? How do you know that? Like, you've seen the Silver Surfer escape a fucking black hole. She has chased you through she's chased you through wormholes, portals, black holes, through quasars. She's phased through matter. She's flown through space. How do you know that she can't just? How do you know that Galactus or the Silver Surfer cannot just teleport back here or show up here again? Like, and then because the thing is, Reed talks about how he can't make a plan for the unknown, or he can't make a definitive plan for variables that he doesn't know about. Because he talks about how to comprehend what Galactus is, it would take like years. But then at the same time, he talks about how Galactus is so complicated and like a complex life form, and it would take forever pretty much to figure out what he is. He then makes plans to deal with Galactus that are definitive. Like, he just assumes if we get Galactus into this portal, he's gonna not be able to come back. It's like, how do you know that? Like, how do you know that Galactus can't show up again? How do you know the Silver Surfer can't show up again? Because once again, they've never met Galactus or a Silver Surfer, so there's no reason for them to know or have any actual assumptions of what they can and can't do. But like at every turn, Reed says, like in definitive terms, that if we do X, that this will happen. It's like, well, you don't know that though. Like, you don't know that if you send Galactus to the edge of the universe or wherever in space that he can't get back. Because I mean, how do you know he can't just teleport? Like, it's never even brought up, but the fact that maybe Galactus could just use some type of teleportation device, or maybe he can summon his ship to him and he can come back that way. And if that's the case, if he shows up again, well, now he's going to know, oh, I'm not going to fall for that again. And then he can just eat the planet. Now he can come without any warning and just devour the planet. Like, that's just never accounted for. The end of the film doesn't even account for that. I was like, do you know that he can't come back? Like, you're just assuming that he can't. But there's nothing in the film to indicate that Reed knows for sure that either Galactus or the Silver Surfer can't come back, or that Galactus is not just going to show up again like a few days later. That's just never accounted for. But that kind of segues into something that I've kind of touched on earlier. Is that the thing that really bothered me about this, or one of the things that bothered me about this film, is that Reed Richards, he does not really come off as being a highly intelligent character. He comes off as being a smart character at best, but he doesn't come off as being a hyper intelligent character or like one of the most smartest characters in the universe. I mean, a lot of the plans he makes are either very ridiculous, very stupid, very simplistic, or they rely on a lot of assumptions that he doesn't have a basis for making those assumptions for. Like, when they're dealing with the Silver Surfer, his plan to deal with her is to trap her in a black. Is to essentially is to teleport into a black hole or near a black hole, and for her to chase them and to get her trapped in the black hole. And he said it would take her a month to get back. And it's like, how do you know that? Like, what? How do you know that it's going to take? Like, she has chased you through portals and wormholes. She's traveled who knows how many miles or whatever in space. She's phased through your ship. She can phase through matter. How do you know that she cannot just teleport out of there? Like, it's just, I don't know. It's just weird to me how Reed, Reed keeps saying at every turn, like these definitive solutions and plans. It's like, I mean, you really don't have a basis for that. Like, there's nothing to actually like give you the means to think that that's actually going to be a viable plan. Like he just assumes that. And I don't know, like it doesn't strike me as someone who's hyper intelligent. Like in a lot of the plans he comes up with, like the plan to save the planet. His grand plan is to teleport the planet from one part of the universe to another. Like it's literally the most Patrick Star level IQ move. Is like we're just gonna take the planet and then teleport the planet to another part of to the universe. And his basis for knowing that this is going to work is that he was able to teleport an egg through space. And it's like, okay, that's one thing. Like comparing an egg to a full planet with billions of life forms on it, that's a whole other, that's a scale very different from an egg. I mean, that's like fucking like an apple to a fucking goddamn fruit bar or some shit. Like that's like a Hershey's bar and a fucking watermelon. Like that, they are so different. Like I don't even know how you could get the assumption that because you can teleport an egg, I can surely teleport an entire planet with billions of life forms on it into another part of the universe, and they'll be fine. And also, uh, I think now in the execution, they are only going to teleport the planet, the Earth. They don't account for the moon or the sun. Now, some people have said that they accounted for the moon because, like, in Reed's demonstration of like how they're gonna do this, they're going to like teleport the moon and the planet. It's like, well, that's great, but the problem with that is, um, the moon and the sun. Like, are you just gonna have the planet be in a vacuum of space with just a moon and no sun? Like, is that not gonna mess up anything? That not all a first of all that the gravitational rotation, all that, the planet's just been instantly disrupted. And now it's like randomly in a whole other part of the universe. And now the moon's in a whole other location. And now the sun's not there. Like, is that not going to cause like fatalistic, kind of, consequences on the planet? Like, I feel like that's a pretty big deal. Like, I feel like that could, I mean, hell, that could probably destroy the planet right there. The fact that the planet just suddenly just teleports from one part of the universe to another without a sun, the moon a different location, that's gonna be fucking dire. And on top of that, they don't even do that. Like if the plan had worked, they wouldn't have taken the moon with them because the pillars that they use to teleport the Earth are only on the planet. They don't use those to actually teleport the moon, and the sun is only on the planet. So even if their planet worked, then they would have only teleported the planet with no moon or a sun, which would have been double fuck. So I don't even get what the like. I don't understand how Reed thought this was an actual viable plan. It just seemed like the most. It is. It's the most Patrick Star level idea. Let's move the planet from this part of the universe to this part of the universe, and Galactus won't be able to find us. And once again, it assumes that the Silver Surfer or Galactus can't find that planet. Like, how do you know that the Silver Surfer or Galactus won't be able to find you? Like, you don't know. Like, again, it's just Reed makes all of these assumptions off of no information or concrete data to make these ideas. Like, I don't understand this. Like, I don't get how Reed, one of the smartest human beings in the planet or on the universe, how he comes up with these ideas. I don't understand it. Like, I don't get it. And the idea is just fucked to begin with. So that was frustrating. I really was kind of frustrated with how Reed was just not portrayed, especially when you see, like, we have characters like Tony Stark, where we and now granted Tony Stark had, a decade of films to actually display his intelligence, but like when you look at like the plans that Tony comes up with, you see the technology he comes up with, like he's portrayed, like you can see in the portrayal that he's a hyper competent, flawed a good bit of times, but hyper intelligent. And you can see it with his inventions, with the ideas he comes up with, his plans, with his fail safes. Now, obviously, Tony, like every genius or a highly intelligent character in the MCU, are victim of being dumbed down or making just very out of character mistakes for plots to happen. But bearing that, characters like Tony Stark, characters like Doctor Strange. I mean, Doctor Strange is kind of forgotten now, but Doctor Strange was a surgeon before he became the Sorcerer Supreme, and even he's like was before Doctor Strange 2. Let's ignore that fucking movie. But beyond that, but for the most part, Doctor Strange, Tony Stark, characters who are considered some of the more intelligent characters. Even Bruce Banner before She Hulk and before Endgame, even he was portrayed by and large as being a hyper competent, hyper intelligent character. And with Reed, I really just didn't get that same type of characterization as we've gotten with other very intelligent, hyper intelligent characters, which is unfortunate. I mean, that might change obviously because he's going to be in Doomsday, probably going to be in Secret Wars, and obviously there's going to be other Fantastic Four films that come out after this, so he'll have a chance to really display his intelligence. But at least in this film, I really felt like it really was not utilized correctly, or really utilized that well. Um, but I know it sounds like I've been just really ranting about the film and that I really didn't like the film, but I really did. Like, I really did enjoy the film. I just there were just things about the film that bothered me, and there were just things that were done that just were really confusing, or just characters that were not really utilized correctly that were just kind of frustrating. I mean, really, I wouldn't say that there are a lot of bad elements of the film. I feel like there's just a lot of frustrating aspects of the film, or just things that are not done correctly. Not even not correctly, but just not done as good as it could be. Like, I feel like that's the way I would describe it. But I mean, overall, I mean, yeah, the film was enjoyable. It was fun. It had a nice blend of having a serious tone, but it also had a pretty upbeat, kind of lighthearted tone too. It took itself seriously, but it also was able to kind of make fun of itself a little bit, kind of have a lighthearted tone to it. But yeah, as far as like the Fantastic Four, I would say this was a really good portrayal by and large, and I mean I'm excited to see what they do in Doomsday. I will say I came away from this film actually looking forward to seeing these characters and liking these characters, and that has not been the case for other Marvel films. Like, for example, Doctor Strange used to be one of my favorite characters in the MCU, and after Doctor Strange 2, I never wanted to see him or Scarlet Witch again. Like, that film ruined me wanting to see either of those characters again. But in this film, I actually enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed the characters, I enjoyed their dynamic, I enjoyed the arcs that they went through, and so I'm excited to see what they do with them. And I mean, this is also a much needed breath of life for the MCU. I mean, this is one of their first films in quite, I guess, a year or so. I mean, the last film I think has been universally received as well as this one was Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and then the last Spider-Man movie, and that's been like a year or two ago. So this has definitely been a nice little breath of life for the MCU. Now, I mean, as far as this saving the MCU, that's not going to happen. Because I've seen people say that this is like the movie that's going to get Marvel back to what it was, and it's like, no, that's the thing about that is it's not going to be a movie that does it. It's going to be like a string of films, not just one film. And so they're going to need to have a track record going forward for a few years of good films for them to actually be back, not just a good film with a few either mid films or just not good films. It's going to take years of them having consistent quality to get back to being their glory days. Um, but I will say, with that said, I think that this is a good a good start forward. It's a good precursor to Doomsday. So yeah, I think overall pretty solid. But with that said, I don't got much else to say about it. And so, with that said, I think I'm gonna call the day here, and I'll see you good people later.